Welcome to the NWR Virtual Resources Series. My name is Kerry Stevenson. Next up, we have Eastern Metals. Now, Eastern Metals, ASX code will be EMS. They're going to be listing any moment, like it's imminent. They closed their IPO in September, raised 6 million, heavily oversubscribed. So for those of you lucky enough to get stock, good on you. They've got a portfolio of assets in the Northern Territory and New South Wales, base and precious metals exploration. Very exciting projects. I can't wait to hear this. Wayne, over to you to tell us the Eastern Metals story and what's happening.
Hi, Kerry. Great to see you again. And thanks you and NWR for the invitation to present today. Look, you're right. Our listing is imminent. We're just completing the final ticks and checks with ASX. And so we expect that will happen shortly. And yes, we were heavily oversubscribed and we closed the offering early. So it was fabulous to have that support. Eastern Metals, as you've said, is a base metals company, but you know, we're probably a bit of a future metals company as well. And of the four key future metals of copper, nickel, lithium, and cobalt, we have the first three on our tenements. So we're pretty excited to be in this space. I'll just quickly run through the disclaimer and get on to the projects. Eastern Metals is a deal that's taken us about 18 months to put together. The assets that we've acquired, our flagship assets, from Wesfarmers, and they picked them up from NWR Resources. So they're quite well known out there in the market. And what we wanted to do was to add to those flagship assets a little bit of exploration upside, which is what our THOMSON project represents. So starting with the ARUNTA project in the Northern Territory, its principal asset is a thing called BULLION. It's a mine. It was mined back in the 50s, a very, very high grade. It has a resource on it already of 2.8 million tonnes at 2.5 million tonnes at 2.8% copper equivalent. But it's open in most directions. So there's great potential to expand that resource. And it's a VMS system. So we fully expect that we'll identify other lenses and be able to add to the tonnage there. So what it is in a nutshell is a high grade copper resource. We've got the grade, we just need to build the tonnage, and there's ample potential to do that. To the north of that, in a separate tenement area, but under the same tenement number, we have another thing called Prospect D, where there's been very high grade copper and nickel hits in the limited drilling that's been done to date, which has been relatively shallow. And on both prospects, we're sitting within the Barrow Creek pegmatite field, and they're prospective for lithium pegmatites. In fact, Wesfarmers, who prepared a soil sampling program over the area, but didn't get to execute it. Our second flagship project is the Browns Reef project in Western New South Wales. It's in the Southern COBAR Basin. We've always loved the COBAR Basin, which is a prolific mineral district. Browns Reef has been around for a while. When Kidman had it, they did a lot of intensive drilling on one section of the mineralized area. But this thing's got 16 kilometers of strike. It's a syncline, 8 kilometers long. All the drilling was done on the western flank, none it was all done on the eastern flank, none on the western flank, which has got thin basalt cover. So we think there's great potential there within that broad mineralized envelope to discover one or more economic ore bodies. In fact, there's been ore grade hits and widths within the drilling that was done by Kidman, which was never followed up on. And lastly, we have our THOMSON project, which is really interesting. They're bullseye, weak magnetic targets, absolute copycats for the sort of targets that led to the discovery of the CSA Allura mines. There's tertiary cover, which makes the drilling difficult. But what drilling has been done in the past, we believe, and all the people who did the drilling, think they just missed their targets, and what they got in their core was anomalous mineralization, but nothing that explained the magnetic signature that had come through in the targeting. So the consensus view of the drillers, and in fact the department, is that the targets were missed. And the other consensus view is that the basement in THOMSON isn't the THOMSON fold belt, but is rather the COBAR basin, which is really interesting. So look, that's a quick overview. We've raised 6 million, which was our maximum. This is what our register is going to look like on opening. The registry is controlled by Bob Duffin, who funded the acquisition the projects. So it's real cash that's been put into this by the principals, and the rest we've had great support through the IPO. So we've got quite a nice register there. Just with the IPO, I should say, I think one of the reasons why we were so well supported is, A, the quality of the projects, and B, management, which I'll just run over quickly here. But the third thing is we've been very competitive with our valuation. So we put these assets to market at a valuation of sub $5 million enterprise value. And look, in this market, you see a lot of moose parts get floated for a lot more. So we think the value attached to these is extremely competitive, and would like to think that there's great potential and for an upward trajectory of our share price with a modicum of success. And we like to compare ourselves to Peel Mining in terms of our project location and the style of projects, who are enjoying a circa 100 million market cap. So that's something we endeavour to get to relatively quickly. Management, Bob Duffin, geoscientist, been in the industry for a long time and has enjoyed a lot of success. I've worked with Bob for the last probably 10 years, and we've been very, very fortunate to be joined by a couple of great non-executive directors, Kathy Moises, who's a very well-known resource analyst and company director now, Jason Burton, who's a structural geologist who, in fact, knows Browns Reef very well. But then we've got Ian Morgan, who's very well known as a COISEC CFO. And then we've got Gary Jones and Bob Richardson, part of the old Pico Wallsend GeoPico club that Bob Duffin came out of. These guys have known each other for a long time. Gary was the person responsible for the discovery of North Parks. Bob Richardson, he discovered the Blind Juno project in the Northern Territory, and he's our principal geophysicist. In fact, he's the son of the doyen of geophysics in Australia. So really, really well credentialed. I should say Gary discovered Lake Cal as well. Bob Duffin and Gary floated WPG probably a decade or so ago, just on some projects, Achilles to the west of where we are at Browns Reef, which are now being drilled quite successfully by Australian Gold and Copper. So the projects, I'm going to have to go quickly, Kerry, because you don't give me much time here, but this is the overview of our Barrow Creek project, the ARUNTA project. So three principal targets, if you like, the home of bullion, and you can see in that bottom diagram, there's a number of named geophysical prospects and structural targets around the actual home of bullion mine. To the north is Prospect D, where we've got the copper and nickel mineralisation, and there's a high-grade core. And then across all the projects is the pegmatites within the Barrow Creek pegmatite field. So we'll be getting out there very quickly, doing drilling preparation. We probably won't drill to the new year just because of the heat of summer, and we'll do our reconnaissance, preparing our lithium sampling program as well. I'll just run through these more detailed slides quickly in the interest of time. But I'll just pause here at home of bullion. There was a little bit of drilling done on these electromagnetic anomalies to the northwest of the home of bullion mine. Testing was inadequate. There's a lot more work to be done there. But our initial drill program at home of bullion won't in fact be targeting these other prospects, but we rather will be a resource expansion program. So we've got a 9-hole program that's specifically designed to step out on where the home of bullion resource is open to add some immediate tonnage. Prospect D, I'll just quickly pan in on, there's a 400-metre core central zone over this 2-kilometre long anomaly, but you can see the sort of copper and nickel grades in the diagram there that we've seen. So, the highest is 2.2% copper, and there's almost 6,000 parts per million nickel there. So pretty interesting. A lot of work still needs to be done.
Sorry to interrupt you, Wayne. With those results, what sort of drilling? Who did that drilling, and when was that done, and how deep did they go?
Yeah, they went to about 250 metres deep. It was done by Kidman, and it was done circa 2013-14.
Okay.
They're vertical holes, so we don't have a lot of information structurally around the targets there. But with those sort of numbers, it definitely warrants some follow-up. I mentioned that the area is prospective for pegmatites, LCT type pegmatites. This Barrow Creek pegmatite field, there's quite a lot of people moving into that space now, including Core Lithium, who developing the Finnis project up there to the north of us in the Northern Territory. But this is one of their potential satellite fields, if you like, for processing. And what we enjoy here is, the Stewart Highway is nearby, but there's also rail access, which is pretty useful when you're trying to ship pegmatites north to a processing facility. Moving to COBAR, we have a number of tenements in COBAR that are contiguous to Brown's Reef along the control, what we believe is the controlling structure of the Warrara Fault. I'll focus on Brown's, however. So Brown's was extensively drilled by Kidman. An exploration target of 27 to 37 million tonnes of relatively low-grade material was identified in the area they drilled. But within that drilling, there was certainly ore grade and ore width intercepts, which is what we will be targeting, looking for the plums in the pudding, if you like. This is a plan which shows the structure. So it's interpreted as a syncline, if you could imagine it like the hull of a ship. It's 8 kilometres long, and all the drilling was done on that eastern flank. You can see a couple of section lines A, B, and C. The drilling was, within that area and just a little bit to the north and the south, and that's where the exploration target sits. So the rest of this system is potentially mineralised. There was air core drilling done back in the 50s on the western flank, which had geochemical anomalous results, very similar to what was seen on the eastern flank. So we're really keen to get in there. A long section of the work that was done by Kidman back in the day. This is shows the envelope of the exploration target, and we've noted a number of high-grade hits in there. And if you're to look to the, I'll just pick one, BRD 13. It's 7 meters at 5.5 zinc, 2.3 lead, 0.5% copper, with silver and gold credits as well. These things add up to circa 10% zinc, which is getting to it is all grade, and the widths are potentially all width for mining purposes as well. So we've got a 7-hole initial drilling program here. It's simply to step out on some of these high grade hits that have been encountered in the past and to see what we get. If you look at, I mentioned Peel Mining earlier, the projects that they've got, the typical strike length of these things is 200 to maybe 300 meters at most. So you could fit within any one of those red circles on this diagram an economic ore body. And so there's vast scope to find something here. We've got an extensive mineralized system, and we've got a few good leads to follow up on, being those high grade hits from the past. So look, this is a bit of a diagram of where the drilling's going to be. That diagram up the top, there's a cluster of 4 holes to the north and 2 to the south. And then I have a number of other areas that are marked with fence lines. That's going to be a RAB program, which will follow the diamond program. And that's targeting the western flank, really to identify where structures are, which will then give us the ability to have a much more targeted diamond drilling program come next year. And our last project is THOMSON. I mentioned these bullseye magnetic anomalies. They're very weak, but they are copycats of what led to the discovery of the Allura and CSA mine. We're really excited about that. We haven't got funding in our budget for these, so we'll be seeking external partners to assist us to fund the drilling of these, whether that be other industry players or government or both. But what they represent is higher risk, but potentially extremely high reward targets. So we've got a busy work program ahead of us, Kerry. I've tried to map it out here, but as I mentioned earlier, we're going to get up to home bullion pretty quickly. COVID restrictions allowing, but we have consulting geologists who can come from states other than New South Wales to get the process moving, and we're organising that as we speak. We've just completed land access agreements up there. We have a native title agreement in place. So that reconnaissance trip will be done before Christmas with a view to drilling as soon as it's not too hot up in the territory. And that reconnaissance strip will also be on planning that initial pegmatite sampling program. In COBAR, we're furiously working towards getting a drill rig out there as soon as we can. They're cropping at the moment. We'll probably drill at the back end of the cropping season for the diamond holes because it's relatively low impact. And
when is, sorry, Wayne, when is that going to be? When's the end of the cropping season? I'm not being a farmer myself.
Well, I'm not a farmer either, but they've had really good rain out of Lake Cargelligo recently, and so that's probably pushing back the end of the cropping season till mid-November. We'll be drilling out there, diamond drilling by then, and we'll be looking to do a RAB program as soon as we can after that, once cropping's finished. So we're just consulting with the landholders now in terms of which paddocks they're cropping on, which ones we can access first, and all that sort of good stuff as we speak. So look, we're going to hit the ground running pretty hard from a drilling perspective, but I won't go through this whole slide here, and people will be able to look at it at their leisure from our website. But you can see that that first round of drilling is really to identify the next round of drilling and so forth. So we take quite a frugal approach to the way we spend our exploration dollars. So we don't just get out there and drill the bejesus out of a project. It's very targeted. It's about collecting the next round of information so that the next set of drill holes can be properly designed and money spent appropriately. But the intent at both Browns and at Homer Bullion is to add to the existing resource or space, in the case of Browns to put out that maiden resource, but then to build on it, and then to actually undertake metallurgical test work and bring these things into resource and feasibility as soon as possible. There has been preliminary met test work done at both projects, which has been very encouraging. And then, of course, in the background, we're always seeking to add to the resource base or find new discoveries. So look, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I've already covered off in this drill program here. I'm open to questions from you, Kerry. I thought you'd be asking me a few on the way. I must have been speaking too quickly.
No, you were speaking so fast. I didn't want to interrupt you at parts of it, and then I was trying to digest because there's a lot going on with Eastern Metals. There is a question which I was about to ask, but it's come up in the Q&A panel. So I'll start off with that, kick off with that one. How well because you mentioned the THOMSON project, you need a partner. That's not what you're going to focus on. The question here is how well progress are any joint venture discussions with partners for that project, the THOMSON project?
We haven't commenced any joint venture discussions, but what we have done is we've designed our drill program. So we know exactly what needs to be drilled. And with any JV on those projects or whatever the arrangement may be, it's the intent of Eastern Metals to have management control. So we're very focused on what needs to be done there. We don't want to get in there and waste money fluffing around doing work that doesn't need to be done. The targets are well defined, the drill holes are designed, and they just need to be funded and put in.
Wayne, question from me is, what attracted you to this company, these projects? What was it? You've got three, you've got Northern Territory, you've got ARUNTA, nice and hot up there, and you've got the old L word in there, not love, lithium. And then you come down to New South Wales, you've got COBAR and THOMSON you're looking for a partner for. So it's COBAR and I guess the Northern Territory, the ARUNTA. What attracted you with your background to this company and these projects?
Yeah, great question, Kerry. Bob Duffin, myself, and Gary Jones, who are the founders of Eastern Metals, have been seeking projects that have existing JORC compliant resources on them or near JORC resources that we think had the potential to be taken through a exploration and feasibility program into potential development. And it's been a long search. We've kissed a lot of frogs, as you do, and we were delighted when these projects became available. We're even more delighted that we're able to get them at what we thought was a very attractive price. It's been an 18-month process, so it hasn't been easy. It's taken a long time. So it's all been sweat equity putting this together. But these projects are exactly what we've looked for. In fact, it was very interesting. We've always loved the COBAR Basin. And
oh, it's brilliant around there. Yeah, yeah.
well, we were initially attracted to browns, and that was what we were in the deal for. And but as we lifted the hood on Homer Bullion, we got more and more excited about it. And in the market we're in now, I think it's fair to say people are more interested in copper than zinc. But I've got to tell you, Browns Reef, some of the deep holes there, very anomalous copper and gold, and we think it's got excellent copper and gold potential, as many of those COBAR systems do. So, it's exactly the sort of portfolio we like. Something that we've got a really good starting point, a huge amount of data. I mean, there's been collectively $9 million spent by Kidman on these two projects. And so we've got an incredible data set to start with, which gives us the ability to be really focused on our exploration.
It's interesting, as we speak today, I think copper it just hit over 11,000 a tonne overnight, which is, the prices for copper. But we know there's a demand supply that's out of whack at the moment, but copper doesn't come on demand quickly. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. With Kidman, what you say it was an 18-month process to get through this. Why did it take so long, and why did they give them up?
Well, we bought them from Wesfarmers, and Wesfarmers acquired Kidman through a scheme of arrangement to get the Mount Holland project, so for the lithium project. So these are way too small for a company like Wesfarmers.
Yep.
And because they're so small, they're not very important, and so the wheels turn slowly in big corporates when you're dealing with peripheral unimportant assets. But both projects needed to be renewed during the acquisition process. And there was quite a few hurdles that had to be jumped through for those renewals, but we successfully got to a point where Eastern Metals acquired each project in full, and we have 100% interest in all of our projects, which is fabulous.
Well, 100% interest is good. My last question, because we're running out of time, is with these projects, with the listing, you mentioned a rig coming on site in New South Wales. Have you found a rig? Is it coming on site? And are you confident drilling will start in I think you said December?
Yeah, look, I'm confident drilling will start. I'm speaking with drillers as we speak. I have 3 potential rigs I could bring in. So it's just a question of which rig is the most suitable. And we're just working through a number of the, the technical parameters around the pre-collars that we want to do on the drilling based on the conditions we're expecting at site. So just a couple of technical pieces to work through, and then we'll commission one of those rigs. And indeed we haven't locked in any contracts, Kerry, and we won't until such a time that we're actually listed.
Yes,
which hopefully will be this week.
And it could be any moment now, ladies and gentlemen. And as I said before, the code will be, is it EMS? EMS. Wayne Rossiter, thank you so much for joining us at the NWR Virtual Resources Series. I wish you all the best, and congratulations with a heavily oversubscribed IPO. Well done.
Thanks very much, Kerry. I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for listening.